Well, let's talk about why responses to the latest White House attack on the Smithsonian might be doing more harm than good, and what it says about the ongoing public history fight against the MAGA right. Hey folks, I'm Ted Sturmer. I'm an American scholar of resistance history at the University of Southern Denmark and Johns Hopkins. You might have seen the stories about this or seen posts with people complaining about it. Based on what they say are the White House says, are public submissions. The White House is taking aim again at the Smithsonian, pointing to what it says are these troubling exhibits at 7 different museums, including a Benjamin Franklin exhibit that links his scientific achievements to his ownership of enslaved people, and a film about George Floyd's murder that it says mischaracterizes the police. This is one of those cultural fights that Steve Bannon loves to pick, because he knows it will send the left into a distracting tizzy. It's red meat for his folks, especially as the Epstein stuff and wrapping the US around Russia has them packing up their bags. So cue the war on woke. But this regime loves fake fights. They love to cosplay being battle ready, always punching down. It's why they send troops in desert camouflage and combat gear to police the Lincoln Memorial and face off against tourists armed with smartphones and federal workers with sandwiches. They have zero interest, I guarantee you, in the real thing about almost anything. They don't want to get into any kind of fight in which somebody else is going to fight back. So what and who are the problems here? Well, the White House says President Trump will explore all options and avenues to get the woke out of the Smithsonian and hold them accountable. Hold them accountable. Who's them? The staff? The board, which is at least half Republican anyway at this point. Who's them? The administration argues that exhibits at those museums focus excessively on oppression rather than on America's great achievements. But Lonnie Bunch, in good form, as always, he has a strong response to all that, to his folks. Steady on. Keep your head about you. We got this. He knows there's no woke. There's just facts. Just an honest interpretation. The regime just wants to argue it needs to be spun the other way so the MAGA folks don't get their feelings hurt. Because the last thing this regime is interested in is history, well, or facts. Because none of what they say is actually going on. For example, let's take a look at 2 of them. The exhibit on Latino history in the United States. You can see it for yourself. It's all there online, actually. The link's below, including the exhibit language. Check for yourself what it says about colonization and U.S. expansion, including the Mexican War. Frankly, it's all kind of light celebratory, rah-rah, let's go America stuff. Yeah, the colonization language is there to include indigenous resistance, and slavery, and black resistance, but it doesn't assign anything directly to a particular colonizer. If there's blame, it's on a process, not on a people. Yeah, colonization, brutal and destructive. But the exhibit also ends it there, making it impersonal. You have to be really sensitive and already pretty thin-skinned about your identity if you think that language is talking about you. And I can't even find the reference to the Mexican War or the treaty that ended it as stealing Mexican land. If it's there, it's buried, and it's one panel at best. And the exhibit on Franklin that includes slavery. Okay, it's about an exhibit that does what history should do. This is at the National Museum of American History. It tells the whole story. What's really bizarre about this, and I know firsthand from my work on Franklin and slavery that we've talked about here, is that most people don't know that Franklin was an enslaver. And that exhibit has been going on since 2021. It's hardly a lightning rod in the public history community. And frankly, the online version is the most informative and balanced approach to the subject that I've ever seen. Even I don't have a problem with it, and I can manage to have a problem with almost everything like that. But it also doesn't show up even when you do internet searches of Franklin and slavery, so it's not even SEO optimized. I don't know what they're complaining about. Nobody's seeing this stuff. The bigger point is that I'm not sure that the people in this regime who have the problems have even seen these exhibits. They're just going off what's been reported to them, maybe. Or, more to the point, they don't care. That's not what this is about. It's not about these exhibits. It's not about this language. They want to stick their ultra-nationalist knife into American history and resurrect it as a fairy tale. We talk about that already. And they're already doing it. A couple of exhibits at the Smithsonian aren't going to change that one way or another. The $1 billion they now have going to fairy tale projects that they've repurposed from the NEH and other institutions and erasing from honest history education, that's going to provide a bigger cultural reset, I think. But the symbolism, you say, it's the Smithsonian, America's attic. Well, yeah, I agree. The symbolism. It's all about the symbolism. So symbolically, what are we really talking about? Because what many on the left are racing to say, mainly to each other, is that they're trying to erase our history, don't let them. Okay, but that's not new. We're 8 months into this, and they can't do that. No one can erase our history. They can change some words around on a sign and on a website. That's it. And yet you'll see post after post about this, chasing likes, followers, speaker fees. Man, these journalists cosplaying as historians are just killing me. If you love history so much, why didn't you just become a historian? Or is it just easier to steal ideas out of somebody else's book and pass it off as your own? At any rate, as someone who does all of this for a living, and I've been doing it for more than 15 years, from where I sit, what do I really see, especially at this point, in denying the abusive authority of this regime and maybe rolling it back? Where are we when it comes to resistance? Well, there are a few troubling signs. Yeah, they're the rage farmers that want to get you worked up, but that does exactly what the right wants to do. They're experts in getting you to spin your wheels, spend your energy, to waste your emotions on their latest poke. If you're worried about an exhibit at a museum you are not going to visit, then you're not asking about Epstein. You're not asking about Putin. You're not asking about inflation, the jobs report. You're not asking about the latest ICE prison. You're not asking about Nicole Collier and Republican redistricting. You're not asking about mail-in ballots. And you certainly aren't asking about Gaza. Instead, you're asking about the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, which, trust me, isn't going anywhere. They can't change the language. It's already signed. Instead, what you get are very strange advocacy efforts on the left, or what appears to be the left. I was sent this one yesterday by colleagues and friends from all over the place, which is why I'm sort of bringing it to your attention, because it's just kind of weird. It's from a new group, always a new group these days, called America's History Save Our Smithsonian. Not the Smithsonian Associates. You really want to support the Smithsonian? Go join them. No, this is America's History Save Our Smithsonian. But I guess more people supporting these institutions and what's going on, no harm in that, right? But in a move that would have made even Thoreau's big head explode, they asked for two things off the bat. Sign a petition and, wait for it, give them money. Like anybody has any left. Okay, sign a petition to do what exactly? Well, they have demands that the National Museum of African American History and Culture and the Smithsonian remain free from political interference. We demand that Congress and the Smithsonian Board of Regents act to protect the museum's independence. We demand that President Trump immediately rescind Executive Order 14253, which is that lame, toothless, restoring truth and sanity to American history. And another demand that all efforts to censor or sanitize African American history be met with unified, unflinching resistance. They demand that. Not exactly from who, they don't really identify, but, they demand it. Does any of that seem, real to you? Because it doesn't get much more performative than that. I mean, demand, it's a heck of a word. And when people ignore you, what then? And that last one, demand that all efforts to censor or sanitize African American history be met with unified, unflinching resistance. Demand it, gotcha. On it. We're on it. Okay, now, can you tell us more about what that means? And what if any of that happens? What if any of that gets achieved? The last one is certainly kind of going on anyway. What's the real goal here? It's pageantry on top of pageantry. That's all the executive order is about the Smithsonian. It's just empty words. So you want to reverse the empty words and all better with more empty words. History is saved. The underlying issue is a far right that is bent on weaponizing your history as a political tool to expand their power and reduce yours. Is that all taken care of? Is the underlying issue in any way addressed once you get at the symbolic stuff at the top? No, but that's it. That's the petition. But let's talk more about the stakes and why performances like this don't help, and why you might want to keep your money. And again, if you really want to join something, maybe the Smithsonian Associates is the way to go. There are a few reasons why the far-right folks need to take control of your history. The first one is about American identity, and not just in a vague, amorphous sense. And this is why they are ultra-nationalists, not just the usual run-of-the-mill rah-rah, wrap yourself in the flag nationalists on the right and on the left. They need to define the American nation, and therefore its leadership, its priorities, its goals, who it serves in narrow ways that exclude people. That's why they spin out the Manifest Destiny, Third Reich art on DHS social media. The American nation is limited to white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. Their allies will be tolerated for now. They want to get that back to what it was before the Civil War. And they say this clearly, specifically. Stop saying that they're using dog whistles. They're not just saying out loud. They mean what they say. Stop crediting them with trying to slide one by you. To them, America is no melting pot. It never was. It never should have been thought of that way. Diversity is the enemy. It was never meant to be a multiracial democracy, just an ethno-nationalist republic. That's what the framers established before the resistance to it blew all of its safeguards out of the way with things like the pesky 14th Amendment. In the end, what the far right is doing is not a nation-building project. It's a nation-rebuilding project. And that's what Project 2025 is all about. So spin that history to exclude or obscure or suppress anything that doesn't fit the narrative that America, as the founders created it, was established as the greatest country that ever was because of those Anglo-Saxon Protestant white guys and their allies. They could do no wrong, almost literally. Celebrate them, don't question them. Why? Because that means they can still control your world today. James Madison, Thomas Jefferson, Alexander Hamilton. If everyone agrees that Jefferson was a great man and he can't be questioned, then his exploitation of enslaved people, his racism, his views of the Constitution cannot just be forgotten. It can be accepted. He was complicated, but let's focus on the great things. Washington, an abuser, an exploiter, but that's just being negative. He was just a man of his time, just like the leaders of today. Complicated men that achieved and are achieving great things. Sure, they had some personal issues, but when measured against their greatness, Epstein list? What Epstein list? He's ended 6 wars. Or is it 7? Complicated, men of their time. But there is another point to this, and it's a bit more practical. If you succeed in diminishing or even erasing historical harm against peoples, against marginalized peoples, the definition of being marginalized, you push to the side, then you eliminate modern needs to rectify that harm. Now, we can talk about reparations for slavery, and there is that. We need to. But more clear and present is the Voting Rights Act of 1965. To ensure that black people had equal access to voting, Congress and the courts acknowledged the ongoing harm generated by centuries of racism and exclusion to suppress black voters. If you undermine the recognition of that harm and its ongoing activity in your world, then you eliminate the protections created to guard against it. Then you allow for the return of the active racism and exclusion that required it in the first place, just to be fair in establishing the right to vote for black people across the South. You eliminate any kind of assistance, again, in the name of fairness, in hiring and in education. You eliminate it all. And the historically privileged, people who look and walk and talk just like me, get to return to enjoying their historical privileges, which are entirely unearned, just by virtue of their skin tone and their baptism certificate, and whatever Ancestry.com says about their lineage. And that is exactly how it works in your life, and how they want to use history to control the courts, control Congress, control your world, and lock it down for them for another generation at least. And American political culture helps them along because it has built into it a kind of cultural inertia that counters resistance. I talk about it in my book. We can talk about it in other ways. It channels all that into comfortable and approved paths and privileges this masquerade of democracy as a massive placebo, which is all that petitions like this really are. A pageant, a charade that becomes a kind of civic placebo. It makes you feel better, but it doesn't do anything. The dangerous part about it is how that has worked in American culture. It anesthetizes you into thinking that it's sufficient. I signed the petition. I shared it. My voice was heard. I gave $5. Someone else is now handling it. My work's done. No real resistance, no action, no active refusal is necessary. This is the way Thoreau put it. If someone cheats you out of $1, what do? Are you satisfied with just knowing that he cheated you out of $1? Are you satisfied with putting that on a sign saying that he cheated you out of $1? Or even with petitioning him to pay you back your $1? Is that enough? Or do you take steps to get your $1 back and make sure he never ever tries to do it again? As Thoreau said, action from principle, the perception and performance of right, changes things and relations. It is essentially revolutionary. So go ahead and take the placebo, sign the petition. The effort might well be legit, I don't know. And everyone needs to protect their peace. And there's only harm, though, if you stop there, if you buy into that lie that it's sufficient. But we're through that looking glass. We know it's not. Instead, focus on the issue, center the goal, get your $1 back. Represent that honest history. Refuse the authority of this regime to twist it for their own purposes. Every time you spotlight what they want to distort, every time you highlight what they want to obscure, is a refusal of their authority. That's resistance. Don't worry about them withdrawing an executive order. Who cares? Don't give them the credit that whatever they are doing matters. Go ahead, issue executive order after executive order. Who cares? Make it irrelevant. Make whatever they say irrelevant, starting with you. Spotlight that story, learn more about it, share more about it, talk more about it, drive them crazy with it. Boost the historians and storytellers who are raising up those subjects. Make it so the MAGA folks will have to work twice as hard to get people to think different about it. That's what will really make a difference. An exhibit just sits there, but you can make those stories move. You can make them breathe in and out. You can bring them back to life. You can make the story sit here, you can make the history sit here, and you can make it grow here. Refuse the authority of this regime to tell you what your past was and what it means today. Remind them that it's yours, and they can't tell you what to do with it. Check out the links to the exhibits below. Let me know what you think.
Nobody wins unless everybody wins. Come! What time?